meant to film this vlog as part of Vlogmas, but everything just got away from me and I was too busy to actually do any filming. So I thought I'd do it as the first one in January. It's just going to be a quick 2022 roundup video and a bit of what 2023 has in store for us. And I have a little secret which I will hint towards, but that will be announced in next week's vlog. So 2022 was fairly mixed in terms of eventing. I think we did 4 events, 4 or 5, and 2 of them didn't go too well. 2 of them went really well. Must have only been 4. I can't remember. One of them was obviously either in the middle. But yeah, so I will run through each event. I'll also do any other competitions that we went to and just do a nice quick voiceover roundup whilst showing some footage of each event. Okay, so first up we had the Riding Club show jumping. This was our first course of the year. It's the 80 centimetres and oh my word, you can see how babyish Casper is. Look, I can't believe the difference in him in just a year. We are all over the place. We're messy, trotting, no rhythm, can't really steer very well. I've left the whole round in just to watch it because I think it's really good to see how far we've come in just a year. Look at that. I mean, I'm having to trot into the jumps. We do a lovely, we do a clear round, but I wouldn't say it's the neatest. There's no straightness, struggling steering. And yeah, it's just quite incredible to see how far we've come since that first round about a year ago. Okay, so next up we have our first event of the season, which was Calmsden 80 centimetres. I had about 2 minutes to warm up in my dressage, or for my dressage. You can watch the vlog if you want to see why. But as you can see, it was quite a tense test. Casper's head was all over the place. I knew he could do better, so it did frustrate me. But actually, it was his 3rd ever test, so it really wasn't that bad. We got a 27, even though we went wrong, so the judge was probably looking at a different test to me. Then we had a lovely clear round in the show jumping. We were so much smoother. We had a rhythm throughout the whole round compared to the Riding Club round. We were able to canter round the whole thing. He changed his legs over each jump. It was just a much better round. I had steering. It probably wasn't as tight as in the indoor arena, but it was just altogether a much better round. Then we went on to the cross country and we had a lovely clear round inside the time, but I did have to bring him back to trot in places where I thought the jumps were spooky, as you will see here. But he still was very honest and it was quite an enjoyable round. I think he had a good time. He flew everything I asked and there were no questions, so I was really pleased and I believe we came 2nd at this event. We then gave our first team chase a go and I was absolutely petrified. Casper had to lead and obviously he hadn't done much cross country before this, so I was super impressed by the end of it. I was so confident. I absolutely loved it. It was amazing. Such an adrenaline rush. And Casper flew round, leading all the other horses for a fairly speedy clear round, but not quick enough to get placed. But that did alight our bug for team chasing, and we had a few more to come. We then went to Rockingham Horse Trials for the Riding Club show jumping, and everything fell apart, to be honest. We had no rhythm. I think we had about 4 poles, and it was just very messy. Casper wasn't feeling his best. I don't know if it's because it was quite warm that day. or what, but we didn't have the best rhythm. He wasn't picking up his toes, even when he was being placed on a fairly decent stride. So we had a lot to work on after this, because we had our first 90 centimetre event coming up. But he was jumping some of them nicely, which was just a real shame, to be honest. I think my lines could have been much better. I could have ridden him much better, and we just needed a much better rhythm. So a lot learned from that round. And we headed off to Solihull for our first 90 centimetre cross country round, and this was so enjoyable. Casper flew round. He was hesitant at places, one of which being at this jump, but he was honest and he tried hard to do what I was asking for him, and I think by the end he was seriously loving it. We flew round, I think it was something like a minute and a half too fast, but we were just having a great time and instilling lots and lots of confidence, which was absolutely fab, because we had our first one-day event, I think a week or two after this, also at Solihull. So it was a really good round to do. So next up was our first 90 centimetre one-day event. This was at Solihull, and it was actually the qualifier for the Riding Club 3-day champs at Swaycliffe, which I was desperate to qualify for. Unfortunately, due to a couple of my mistakes, we didn't qualify, but it was a good experience. I think our dressage test was much improved from Calmsden. Casper was relaxed and his head was fairly stable on the contact. We just needed to improve a bit of cornering, and our transitions is where we lost the most marks. But I was very pleased with him. He was very relaxed and obedient. We just need to work more at home, and these things will then come. So very pleased with him. I can't actually remember what our score was, but I don't think it was too bad. We then headed to the show jumping, where we had 2 poles, one of which was definitely my fault for pushing him on a ridiculously long stride, and he forgetting he's very inexperienced, and that was not an okay thing to do. The other one, I'm not really sure whose fault it was. I think Casper barely touched it, so it was just a bit irritating, but I was pleased with how he went round. He listened to me. We did speed up a little bit, so we do need to work on rhythm, but overall I think it was a fairly good round. We then headed out cross country and had a fab time. An error on my part meant we went a little too fast. I read my stopwatch wrong, which I definitely learned my lesson from this. As you can see, I'm pushing, thinking, oh no, I don't have much time to get home. I actually had about 30 seconds longer than I thought I did. So that was a big lesson learnt, but we had a fab time clear cross country. We then headed to Bengrove for the horse events 90 centimetres. We had a good dressage score of 27 point something and a much improved test. Our transitions were better, but still have room for improvement. And we did lose quite a few marks because he jogged in the walk. And I think we were in second after dressage, but we would have been first after dressage if he hadn't have jogged in the walk, so that was something to take home. He was quite rushy and he did have his tongue flailing about that day, so that was something I needed to work out why, whether the bit had been adjusted. I'm not sure. It was just a one-off and I still don't know why it happened, but I was very pleased with his test. The show jumping, whilst on paper was a good round as it was clear, it was very messy, no rhythm, and I was thinking of pulling pulling him up and retiring after the first fence because we'd had an awful warm-up, but he was pinging round clear. And so I let him carry on at his own pace, but as you can see, he was putting himself rather deep, and it was just a bit of an uncomfortable green round. But we did carry on because he was just taking me into the jumps. It was, however, something that I should have worked on between this and Champs, because we did qualify for the Horse Events Champs this day. So yeah, it was definitely something I should have focused on. We then went cross country. Again, it was still a bit sticky, but he was pulling my arms out and enjoying himself, and we had a fab clear round inside the time, so I was super pleased with him for that. I do think I need to do some more show jumping and cross country schooling, as he does just show a bit of greenness, although we did still get a clear round. His ditch phobia, which may just be my phobia, because as you will have seen in a previous vlog, Michael jumped him over a ditch first time. So we just need to work on that as a partnership, but a good. This was the Horse Events Champs at 90 centimetres. I was so pleased to have gotten there, but I had put a bit of pressure on myself. I was telling myself we were just there for the fun of it, but actually I really wanted to do well. And this then reflects poorly in my marks. As you can see, it's an alright test. It's not the flashiest, and he is in and out of a good rhythm. We do, however, manage to keep to a walk in the walk, and we didn't jog, but we got comments that it was lacking forwardness and just a bit of a plod, as you can see here. Overall, it wasn't an awful test. It didn't feel the best, but I should have been a lot happier with how it was. I was forgetting how young and green Casper was. This was only his 5th ever test, so I really put a lot of pressure on myself, and I shouldn't have. But I've learnt my lesson from it, and we then go on to show jumping. And this was just as messy as our previous round at Bengrove, but we had 2 poles. And I was very annoyed at myself. Casper wasn't exactly the most rideable this day. We were lacking getting a good rhythm. He was fighting me a lot, and it just was very messy. I was pushing for long strides, he wasn't seeing them, and altogether our partnership just wasn't there. Out on cross country, this was pretty much the same. Casper started napping, I think, back to the warm-ups and stuff. As you can see, it's just wiggly lines, but I thought after these few jumps he might just get over it and we could have a good round. But as you will see in a minute, we have our first ever cross country stop, and it wasn't even a good stop. He was running out from a mile away, which really frustrates me, but I think I've learned that when I put pressure on myself, which were the 2 events that went badly for me this season, that is when Casper actually, I think he can sense it and he plays up. So there we go, our first stop, and I do actually retire at the next fence because he does the same thing there, and I just thought it was better to leave it for another day. But lots and lots of lessons learnt from this event. After that bad cross-country round, we went team chasing. At this point, I thought that it was all Casper that was the issue. He was being green and nappy, but I soon learnt out team chasing that Casper had absolutely no problem. He was fighting me, pulling me into all the fences. It did help that obviously we had leads, but he was just a completely different horse because I was relaxed and I was having a great time. This was the Beaufort Novice team chase, which we flew round, and then we headed to the Cotswold Intermediate team chase. Now this was a huge course, the biggest cross-country course I've ever done. Some massive hedges that were nearly bigger than me, and I wasn't the least bit nervous. I was so excited. I had the adrenaline rush and I was super keen to get on with it. And you can see that Casper is absolutely loving life. He's not as quick as the thoroughbreds, so he is struggling to keep up. But even when they go off in front of us, he's still flying along, looking after me and taking me into every single one of the jumps. As you can see here, he's trying his hardest, and I really did realise that actually it was nothing to do with Casper that we had issues. It was to do with my bravery, and Casper is clearly a very sensitive horse, and he was picking up on my nervousness and deciding that enough was enough, he was going to stop. Then we went show jumping. We did a 90 centimetre round first, and it was rhythmical, it was smooth. He gets in deep in places, but he's able to jump out of his stride and just pop the jumps, and it was just a really smooth, lovely round that I was super pleased with. And I thought it gave me a bit of confidence going into our first 1 metre round, which we do next. But as you will see, the 1 metre round looked nothing like this. So there we go, that was the second jump of the 1 metre. And quite frankly, it was an awful round. I completely stopped riding, I got nervous. And Casper really needed me to just crack on and push him through it. But that isn't what I did. I sat there like a potato and let him do it. And he obviously picked up on my nerves and was backing off everything. We got rubbish strides everywhere. And that's not what I wanted. Our last competition of the season was the combine training at Onley. This was our first novice test. And as it was our first test, I was super pleased with him. Obviously, there's a lot to work on, but he tried his hardest, and I think we got something like 67%, which, yeah, I was really, really happy with, and he tried hard, and it was just the usual things like our transitions needed more balance, and our mediums obviously needed a lot of work, but having never done them before, I was super proud of him here. Then in the show jumping was 90 to a metre, and he jumped the 90 centimetre stuff lovely, but as it went up, here you can see I just ride completely different. We had, I think it was 2 poles, and I just need to learn to ride the exact same when they go bigger, because it is all me and not Casper at all. But you can see there, it was just awful. So there we go, our 2022 season roundup. A lot has been learnt, especially in relation to me and my nerves, and just letting go of it, not putting pressure on myself, because when I do, it goes badly, and just having a good time, relaxing and enjoying my pony. He was a super boy. We've obviously got a lot of things to work on, but I think we had a fairly good year. He was only 5, obviously he's still only 5 for a few more months, but I'm very, very proud of what we did, and we know what we need to work on now. Now for 2023, it's going to be a lot different than I was expecting even 3 days ago, because I have made a little purchase. Now all will be revealed in next week's vlog, but the spur of the moment decision, didn't think about it at all really. I just knew I needed to do it. So there you go. But that does mean that 2023 is going to be different than I expected in terms of finding funds. So I am probably not going to event as much as I wanted to. I still really, really want to qualify for badminton 2024. So I will probably try and do some BE on a ticket and just see if we can get there. If not, I will be focusing on horse events, competing at the Cotswold Cup, because that looks really good as well. And then if we don't manage to qualify for badminton, then I haven't spent loads of money on a membership and wasted it. So that will be my plan for Casper in 2023. And I'm not making any solid plans really, so we'll just see what happens. I think Casper will probably move on to DIY livery, which means I need to sort out my time a lot more, but hopefully we will have a good year. I hope you guys have enjoyed this vlog. It's been quite a quick, short, brief one, but stay tuned for next week's vlog because that one is pretty exciting. Don't forget to like, comment and subscribe. It would really help me out at the moment. I'm trying to get to 1,000 subscribers, so any subscribes do help. See you next time.